Hagar, the unexpected woman whose miraculous faith transformed God's covenant for millions. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, the land of Canaan swayed under the weight of promises whispered through the winds, vows from Yahweh to Abraham, echoing through generations uncounted. It was amid these arid hills and lush palm groves that Hagar, an Egyptian maidservant, stood in the shadow of her mistress, Sarai. The air was thick with despair, weighed down by societal expectations that clung like morning mist to barren women, such as Sarai, whose heart consumed her with the unrelenting desire for a child. Moved by desperation, Sarai commanded Hagar to bear a son in her stead, grasping at the straws of hope that had long eluded her. Genesis 16 verses 1-2. Hagar, stripped of power, found herself entangled in the web of this request, a mere instrument in the hands of her childless mistress. With the unyielding sun beating upon her back, Hagar felt the supernatural stir of life within her, a burgeoning belly that offered Sarai newfound pride, transforming her station from invisible servant to a figure of peculiar significance. Yet, as the days passed and Hagar's condition became apparent, the dynamics shifted ominously. Gone were the moments of gratitude. Instead, glances between the women darkened, the air thickening with an unspoken tension. Hagar's spirit, once humble, now bloomed with quiet confidence, only to ignite jealousy within Sarai, fueled by unfulfilled desires and bitterness. Words turned sharp as edged stones, leading to harsh treatment that cast Hagar into the wilderness, stripped of solace and shelter. Genesis 16 verses 4-6. Alone and weary, Hagar traversed the sun-baked wastelands, her heart heavy yet resolute, her footsteps echoing in the barren silence. With each step, the fading sunlight mirrored her despair until she stumbled upon a spring, a faint beacon of life amidst desolation. Hagar, where have you come from, and where are you going? Genesis 16 verse 7, a voice pierced the stillness, resonating with authority and compassion, infused with divine purpose that spoke directly into her troubled heart. It was here, in her solitude, that the angel of the Lord found her, revealing God's plan for her son, Ishmael. God hears, Genesis 16 verse 11. In that holy encounter, Hagar encountered a truth unknown to her before. She was seen, valued, and cherished by God, no longer merely a servant but a beloved daughter bearing the weight of divine promise. As she grasped the significance of this revelation, her fear morphed into hope, and she uttered, "You are a God of seeing," Genesis 16 verse 13. The dry desert air became thick with the promise of greatness for her descendants, a declaration that shifted her narrative forever. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Yet, the path ahead remained obscured by trials and uncertainties. The weight of motherhood lay heavily on her shoulders, mingled with apprehension and newfound faith. Would her obedience be sufficient to counteract the societal scorn, the latent forces of doubt that loomed large? With the wilderness whispering both promise and peril, Hagar pressed forward, her story a thread in the vast tapestry of God's divine plan, each step a testament to resilience woven through faith as she moved toward a destiny woven with purpose. What lay ahead for Hagar and her son, she could not know, but the divine hand moved mightily, preparing to unveil a covenant that would echo through the ages. In the wilderness, the sun beat down mercilessly upon Hagar, yet within her, a spark of divine hope ignited. She pondered the words of the angel of the Lord, replaying the promise of her son, Ishmael, a name that would carry a weight of significance, the one through whom God would multiply her descendants beyond measure. With every moment, her heart balanced on the knife edge of fear and faith, yet, she pressed on, driven by the pulse of her unborn child. As days blurred into nights, Hagar's solitude became a sanctuary where she wrestled not only with her circumstances but also with her identity. She was no longer merely a servant, she had come to understand her unparalleled worth in the eyes of the Almighty. In the deep of night, as the stars blanketed the sky, she would lean against the cool stones and whisper prayers. "Lord, show me the way," she would cry, her voice a soft echo against the silent cliffs. Then came a moment when Hagar had not expected it. She felt an inexplicable urge to return to her mistress. With a heart still tinged by fear, she knew she must confront the weight of unresolved conflict. "Yahweh has spoken," she murmured, gathering her meager belongings. "And thus, I will return with faith in his promise." Upon her return to Sarai's tent, Hagar was met with an odd tension. Sarai, once inflamed with jealousy, now stood hushed, a flicker of humility crossing her countenance as if she sensed a shift in the divine cadence of their lives. The air was thick with unspoken words, but Hagar chose to remain steadfast, a living embodiment of the promise she had been given. As the months rolled into one another, Hagar's belly swelled, a testament to Yahweh's faithfulness. And in her womb, the son, Ishmael, stirred, ushering in a mixture of joy and uncertainty. With each movement, Hagar was reminded of the covenant that had been redefined in her lifeblood, binding her to the divine purpose God had orchestrated. Yet, the world around them remained harsh. Sarai's heart, though settled in part, bore scars from their past. As Ishmael was born, Hagar marveled at the miracle, holding him close against her chest. In that moment, she felt the weight of generations intertwining a promise not only for her but for the multitude yet to come. "His name shall be called Ishmael," she proclaimed, her voice ringing with newfound authority. It was then that Sarai, recognizing the truth of the divine will, humbled herself further before Hagar, realizing that this child was not just a son to Hagar but a bridge to God's grand design. But even within the sanctuary of promises, trials would surface. Conflict arose as Isaac, the son of covenant born to Abraham and Sarai, came of age. The tension reignited when Sarai perceived Ishmael playing alongside her son. "Cast out this bondwoman and her son," Sarai demanded to Abraham, a cold command dripping with anxiety and fear. Genesis 21 verse 10. Abraham's heart was torn, for he loved Ishmael as his own. But God spoke to Abraham, "Do not let it be displeasing in your sight because of the lad or because of your bondwoman. Whatever Sarai has said to you, listen to her voice, for in Isaac your seed shall be called." Genesis 21 verse 12. With these words, the weight of God's sovereign plan pressed upon him. Hagar's heart ached once again, the wilderness calling to her, yet a deeper promise was unfolding, one that would not merely sustain her but propel her forward into a destiny unfathomable. As Hagar wandered into the wilderness once more, the echoes of heavenly promise lingered in the air, heralding that the journey had just begun. Perhaps she could not see the depths of the vision nor fathom the multitude of her descendants, but God's guidance would lead her into the unknown. The time had come for the unfolding of a new chapter in God's eternal story, a story woven with trials, triumphs, and the unyielding faith of an unexpected woman. And so, with a heart boldened by faith, Hagar pressed on, knowing that what lay ahead was anchored in God's sovereign purpose, waiting to surprise and to fulfill a promise that would span generations to come. As Hagar traversed the desolate expanse of the wilderness, the scorching sun began its descent, converting the sky to shades of crimson and gold. Though her feet were weary, her spirit felt renewed, for she carried Ishmael close to her heart. Every movement reminded her of the promise spoken into her life. Alone, yet not abandoned, she sought a place to quench her thirst and lay her head. There, in the shade of a gnarled tree, she implored the heavens, "O Lord, guide me and my son, for I wander far from the comforts I once knew." As the dusk settled, a silence enveloped her, and in that stillness, she sensed a familiar presence, a gentle whisper that wrapped around her soul. "Fear not, Hagar," the Lord urged, "for I will make a great nation of your son." The words resonated deep within her, affirming her place in God's grand design. Her thoughts turned to Abraham and Sarah, and a flicker of wistfulness swept over her. Will they ever understand my pain? She pondered, will they ever see Ishmael not as a threat but as part of the divine promise? Just then, a rustling broke her trance. Ishmael, though only a child, was beginning to take his first steps away from reliance, testing the world around him. Hagar smiled amidst her concerns, seeing the spark of vitality, the inheritance of strength that flowed from her lineage. How tenderly she watched, allowing pride and hope to merge in her heart. Yet, amid the solace of those moments, dread settled in like evening shadows. The valleys of the wilderness stretched before her, filled with uncertainty. Their food was nearly gone, and the water in her skin had run low. "O God, heed my cry," she exclaimed, as her heart twisted with desperation. "In my helplessness, reveal to me your purpose." And in her despair, as she hid Ishmael under a thorny bush, she turned away, unable to witness his suffering any longer. The anguish clutched tightly around her throat. "Let me not witness the death of my child," she wept, her tears now mingling with the dust of the earth. Yet God, who had seen Hagar through the years of servitude and anguish, had not forsaken her. In that moment of deepest despair, an angel of the Lord appeared, a radiant figure whose presence commands reverence. "Hagar, what troubles you?" the angel asked. Her heart stammered, caught between grief and joy. "My Lord, my water is gone, and my son is weak." The angel gently replied, "Fear not, for God has heard the cry of the lad where he lies." And then, pointing to a wellspring nearby, he proclaimed, "Lift up your son and hold him fast, for I have much yet to fulfill through him." Hagar rose with newfound strength, her heart swelling with a blend of gratitude and determination. She rushed to Ishmael, gathering him in her arms. As she approached the spring, the cool water rushed forth, a pure gift in the desolation, and she filled her skin once more. "Truly, the Lord is a God who sees," she whispered, even as the weight of significance began to settle upon her. Ishmael would grow into a man, a nation would spring forth from him, and despite all trials, God promised a future intertwined with hope and purpose. As they drank and were nourished, Hagar once again looked toward the vast horizon. Each sip was infused with divine promise. She could not grasp the fullness of all that would come, yet she grasped the undeniable truth: she had been chosen to be part of a much grander narrative than her own, and, amid the grace and renewed strength, a profound realization began to take root. What she didn't yet know is that from her lineage would one day emerge nations, but even more, God's sovereign plan was weaving a tapestry of destinies across generations, a stage for miracles and promises yet unseen. As days turned into weeks, Hagar and Ishmael traversed the wilderness, their hearts and souls attuned to the rhythm of survival. Each sunrise brought forth a tapestry of colors, invigorating their spirits with a touch of divine promise, while each sunset fell heavy with the burdens of uncertainty. Yet, through it all, the echo of the angel's words remained a beacon in Hagar's heart: God has heard the cry of the lad. One day, as they journeyed, they came upon a community of travelers. Their tents were pitched with care, and the bustling sounds of life filled the air. Hagar felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Approaching, she perceived the faces of these strangers. In their eyes, she sought a glimpse of compassion. "O Lord," she prayed silently, "might they be a source of refuge for us?" She walked forth, weary yet resolute, with Ishmael in her arms. The leader of the camp, a man named Abimelech, approached her, his demeanor warm yet curious. "Who are you, and where do you come from?" he asked, his voice deep and welcoming. "I am Hagar, servant of Sarah, fleeing from her presence," she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor of her past. "I wander with my son, in search of water and sustenance." Abimelech, moved by her plight, gestured toward his encampment. "Come, you may rest. Let us share our food and water with you." Hagar's heart overflowed with gratitude. She knew this moment was another demonstration of God's providence in her life. As they sat together, Hagar shared the tale of her journeys, the promises spoken over Ishmael's life, the burdens she bore, and the unseen hand of God that guided her steps. The travelers listened, their faces reflecting deep empathy, and for the first time in many moons, Hagar felt the weight of her solitude lift, if only briefly. In the midst of this gathering, Ishmael began to play with the children of Abimelech, laughter filling the air as they chased one another under the sun. The sight brought tears to Hagar's eyes, a mix of sorrow and joy, a child once destined to be exiled from a home, now embraced by the warmth of a new family. As night cloaked the land and stars twinkled above like promises unbroken, Hagar gazed into the heavens, her heart filled with reverence. In this moment of stillness, the Lord spoke again into her spirit, reminding her that her son's future stretched far beyond what her eyes currently beheld. For I am the God who sees. Trust in my plan, for I am writing the story of nations, the voice whispered. Her thoughts shifted as she pondered her place in this vast narrative woven by God's sovereign hand. Yet, even in her newfound hope, questions lingered. How could she possibly bear the weight of such a promise? Would her son truly inherit the destinies of nations? And as the fire flickered low and the others retreated to rest, Hagar knelt in prayer. O Lord, reveal to me the wonders you have chosen for Ishmael and me. Let us not remain as mere travelers, but as vessels of your truth and promise. Little did she realize that the story was not only about her and Ishmael, it was a part of a divine orchestration connecting the generations, a legacy of faith, struggle, and promise, destined to fulfill prophecies yet to unfold. Yet even now, as the echoes of her prayer resonated in the night, the whispers of a greater plan stirred in the heavens, hinting that the time would come when her son would stand at the crossroads of fate. What Hagar could not foresee was that the Lord's unfolding drama through their lives would still bear the weight of his eternal covenants, and the tapestry of nations would soon interlace in a manner that would reverberate through all of history. In the days that followed, as Hagar and Ishmael settled into the vibrant community of Abimelech, a sense of tranquility began to replace the turmoil that had accompanied her for so long. The tents stood like sentinels against the backdrop of the endless sky, and the laughter of children echoed in the air, a melody that sang of hope. Yet, in the depth of her soul, Hagar could not ignore the stirring of unease. The words of the Lord still flowed through her heart, their weight profound yet mysterious. Trust in my plan, it echoed, as she watched Ishmael flourish under the warmth of newfound kinship. She pondered what it truly meant for her son to inherit such a grand promise. How could a mere boy born of her anguish lead to nations? One soft morning, as the sun broke above the horizon, casting golden rays across the land, Hagar felt a gentle nudge in her spirit. She rose early, yearning for solitude amongst the stillness of the dawn. She ventured toward a nearby grove of trees that offered shade, the whispering leaves embracing her as she knelt down in fervent prayer. O Lord, she cried out, grant me insight into your purpose for Ishmael. Let him not merely wander, but know the significance of the life you have ordained for him. In that sacred moment, the air thickened with expectancy. From the heavens, the voice of God once more broke through the silence, crystalline and resolute. Hagar, your son shall be a great nation, for he is chosen to fulfill my covenant. Fear not, for my hand is upon him, and even now, I am preparing the path of destiny. Filled with renewed hope, Hagar returned to the camp, yet still burdened by the depth of her calling. It was a truth she yearned to share but felt unworthy to speak. Each day, her faith grew stronger, and her resolve deepened as she observed the kindness of Abimelech and his people, who welcomed her with love and respect. One evening, as the night sky unfurled its blanket of stars, a council gathered around the fire in the center of the encampment. Abimelech spoke of the importance of unity among their clans, recounting tales of their forefathers and the alliances that strengthened their communities. Hagar listened intently, struck by the wisdom in his voice. Suddenly, her heart quickened as she felt the weight of an important decision drawing near. She approached Abimelech, her heart racing. Mighty leader, she began, her voice steady despite the tremor within, I am but a traveler seeking refuge, but I believe God is calling upon me and my son for something greater. May I speak of our plight and the promise that surrounds Ishmael? Abimelech regarded her with an unwavering gaze, his features marked by understanding. Speak, Hagar. Every voice is worthy of being heard, especially those touched by divine purpose. As she recounted the prophecy bestowed upon Ishmael, the council grew silent, each face reflecting the gravity of her words. Hagar poured out her heart, proclaiming the great destiny that lay before her son, one embroidered within God's very fabric of creation. The assembly seemed captivated, sensing the threads of fate intertwining with their own. Among them were scribes and leaders who began to murmur amongst themselves as they considered the implications of what Hagar shared. Hagar's heart beat with the knowledge that they stood not only upon the land of their ancestors but also at the precipice of a covenantal promise that transcended generations. She felt the presence of God among them, reaffirming their roles within a grand tapestry woven by divine hands. little did she know that the night would bring further revelations. As the council dispersed, whispers of God's design flickered among the people, igniting a flame of divine expectancy. What Hagar could not have envisioned was that this gathering would set forth a chain of events that would forever alter the course of history, intertwining her legacy with the fabric of nations yet to rise. And as she returned to Ishmael, under the tapestry of stars, the hands of fate moved ever closer, whispering of the miraculous unfolding of God's perfect plan. Yet, beneath the surface, an unseen tension hung in the air, for what Hagar could not perceive was the looming promise of conflict and unyielding love that awaited them both, a divine mystery still shrouded in time, drawing near as the dawn of nations approached. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, a new day unfurled its wings, bringing with it a sense of both anticipation and trepidation. Hagar awoke with the sun, her heart heavy with purpose, as she felt the stirring of the Lord deep within her spirit. She paused for a moment by the entrance of the tent, her gaze sweeping over the camp that had become their refuge. The laughter of children blended with the calls of morning, an echo of hope resonating through her soul, yet, it was not merely the morning's beauty that captivated her mind, it was the knowledge of her son's destiny. Isaac, the child of promise, and Ishmael, God's chosen for a multitude, were fated to walk disparate paths. The thought both inspired and troubled her. What shall those paths entail? She pondered, her heart seeking understanding. In the days that followed, as Ishmael grew under the watchful eyes of Abimelech and his people, more whispers began to circulate, rumors of an impending conflict between the tribes, fueled by the ever-thickening air of jealousy and pride. Hagar sensed the tension in her bones, as though the very ground beneath her feet warned of chaos to come. One afternoon, as she gathered water from the nearby well, Hagar overheard two women of the clan discussing the blessings that had been promised to the children of the promise. Their words were sharp, less a celebration of kinship than a breeding ground for rivalry. A shiver crept down her spine as she recalled the circumstances of Ishmael's birth. He was the son of her sorrow, yet here he stood on the edge of a legacy. Filled with apprehension, she sought counsel. With her heart poised to advocate for Ishmael's position, she went to speak with Abimelech. "My lord," she began, her voice trembling but resolute, "the destiny of my son is entwined within this camp. His life carries the weight of God's promise. Let not division consume the gift bestowed upon him." Abimelech, wise and gracious, listened intently, his brow furrowed. "Hagar, your words carry the weight of truth. Yet, the hearts of men are fickle, and choices may turn to bitterness. What would you have me do?" "Guide them with love," she implored. "Remind them of the covenant that binds us, the promise that from our lineage shall arise nations mighty and blessed. May jealousy find no home among us, lest we turn against one another." He nodded solemnly, appreciating her courage. "You speak with the insight of the divine, Hagar. I shall call for a gathering, and we shall unite our hearts in prayer, seeking peace that surpasses understanding." As they prepared for the assembly, Hagar's spirit soared once more. She felt the weight of divine urgency, as if God himself were orchestrating the strings of humanity through her son. In the days leading up to the meeting, she dreamed of distant lands and peoples that awaited their time of harvest. "O Lord," she prayed, "I trust in your providence. May your plans unfold in ways unseen. Grant Ishmael strength, wisdom, and the capacity to fulfill all you have ordained." The day of the gathering arrived, and one by one, the tribes came. Hagar stood beside Abimelech, her heart racing with hope. As he spoke, urging the clansmen to remember their shared heritage, she felt a surge of divine presence among them. The memory of the covenant with Abraham rang out, a call to unity that echoed through the hills. Then, in the midst of a hushed crowd, Hagar found her voice rising from within. "Let us remember the words of the Lord, who has said, 'I will make a great nation of you, Ishmael, for I have heard your cry.' We are forged from the same promise. Let us choose generational blessings over fleeting strife." As her words hung in the air, a profound silence enveloped the assembly, and the hearts of the people shifted. Amid conflict as potential, seeds of reconciliation began to take root, yet, unbeknownst to Hagar, even as she labored for peace, shadows of rivalry loomed on the outskirts, waiting for the moment to strike. What she could not foresee was the unfolding of God's greater plan, the birth of nations. Intertwined through struggle, a legacy forever marked by faith and conflict. As the stars began to light the evening sky, a distant storm brewed, reminding all that God's sovereignty was steadfast, and within every promise lay the seeds of trials yet to come. As twilight descended upon the assembly, a hushed reverence filled the air, yet a subtle tension lingered among the gathered tribes. Hagar's heart pounded fiercely as she perceived the stirrings of the human spirit, both eager for unity and clouded by the shadow of jealousy. Her plea for peace had nestled in the hearts of many, but not all who had gathered embraced the message of hope. In the crowd stood some who whispered against Ishmael, their voices laced with resentment. Why should the child of the bondwoman hold promise? Our heritage lies in Isaac, the true son, one declared, and an uneasy murmur swept through the throng. Hagar felt the weight of this profound injustice. The very air thickened with conflict as pregnant silence swelled. Then, from the depths of her spirit, the Holy Spirit ignited her resolve. O Lord, strengthen me. For you have heard my cry. She lifted her gaze toward the heavens, a palpable force urging her forward as she approached Abimelech once more. My Lord, she spoke with newfound boldness, what will you do when strife arises among our kin? Do you not see that the promise of the Almighty envelopes us all? Abimelech, sensing the gravity of her words, nodded gravely. Let us address this division, and confront these hearts that are hardened against the promise of God. Bring forth Isaac and Ishmael, that we may see for ourselves the work of the Almighty in their lives. The command reverberated through the gathering as Abimelech called for Isaac, the favored son, to join them. Hagar's heart warmed as she recalled all that had transpired, the miraculous birth of Ishmael, and now the honorable Isaac. These two boys stood as symbols of the covenant, the promise of God, yet they were positioned on the precipice of spiritual war. As Isaac approached, laughter followed him, the gleeful dance of childhood innocence, a stark contrast to the tension gripping the moment. Hagar took her place beside Ishmael, whose head held high, echoed the strength of a true warrior. For even as the shadows of rivalry encroached, she recognized the Spirit of God within her son. This is not mere flesh and blood, these are destinies intertwined, she whispered, her heart rising in faith. Now, Abimelech continued, let us witness the Spirit at work. He will remind us of the paths woven by our Creator. He beckoned for silence, and as the stillness enveloped them, a soft wind stirred, carrying a sweet fragrance, an echo of divine intercession. What do you desire of us, O Lord? Abimelech asked, raising his hands heavenward. In that moment of peace, Hagar stood firm, drawn by the strength bestowed upon her. My Lord, let Ishmael stand before all, a testament to your promise. For it is you who has said, he will be a wild donkey of a man, his hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. Genesis 16 verse 12, the crowd stirred, their hearts grappling with God's intentions laid bare. Lord, may your will be done. Hagar cried, sensing the vibrations of destiny underfoot. Yet, just as clarity began to settle, the whispers of jealousy grew louder, threats hanging heavily in the air. Through it all harmonies of divine orchestration flowed beneath the cacophony, thrusting the outcome into uncertainty. Then came the night, wrapped in shadows, as Hagar retired in prayer, seeking the God who often spoke in whispers. When will you reveal the fullness of your promise, O Lord? When will the nations spring forth from the labor of our hearts? What more must we endure? And even as the stars twinkled in the vastness above, a deeper mystery unfolded within her spirit, revealing that God's sovereign plan was far greater than she could ever have imagined. But what she did not know was how God's covenant would weave through struggles, shaping destinies across generations. As dawn's first light kissed the earth, a new day emerged, bringing with it the poignant fragrance of hope intertwined with uncertainty. Hagar awoke, the echoes of the previous night still resonating within her spirit. She had raised her voice for Ishmael, standing against the tide of division, and it was in this resolve that she found a flicker of strength. Yet, Shadows loomed large, and whispers of envy and scorn still entwined around her heart. Hagar approached the gathering once more, her countenance brighter amid the dark clouds of rivalry that enveloped the tribes. Sensing the weight of expectation pressing upon her, she fixed her gaze on Abimelech, who was standing near Isaac and Ishmael. "My lord," Hagar spoke, her voice steady yet reverberating with the fervor of a mother's plea, "let us not forget that the Almighty's promise extends to all the children he has given us. Will we embrace his will as our guide?" Abimelech turned to the people, who still bore the marks of conflict upon their faces. "Hearken unto her, O sons and daughters of Abraham, for we stand at the crossroads of decision. Must chaos prevail when the Creator's plan hinges upon unity?" His words struck deep, and the assembly simmered in a tension thick enough to break. "Indeed." A voice rose, one amidst the throng, filled with conviction. "What shall become of Ishmael? Shall he be chased away, allowed to wander into the wilderness before his time?" It was a voice filled with the weight of ancestral promise, echoing through the hearts of those who listened. Hagar's heart raced as she saw uncertainty take root in the eyes of many. It is not by earthly lineage that we are defined. The promise of God transcends our understanding. Ishmael's destiny holds significance in his plan, for as it is written, "I will make him into a great nation," Genesis 21 verse 18. At her declaration, the crowd murmured, the divisions fraught with tension beginning to soften. Hagar stepped forward, emboldened by how the Spirit stirred within her. "Let not your hearts be burdened by doubts, for our God is the God of providence. He sees beyond what our eyes can catch. Just as he provided for me in the wilderness, he will provide for Ishmael." The atmosphere shifted as Abimelech raised his hand, demanding silence. Shall we not learn from the divine voice that calls us to unity? Could it be that the one who brought forth laughter in Isaac has also granted a purpose to Ishmael? We cannot ignore the hands of providence at work. In that moment, the sun cast golden rays upon the assembly, illuminating their faces with a warmth that felt almost like a divine embrace. Hagar watched, her heart swelling with hope as acceptance began to ripple through the throng, kindred spirits recognizing the divine orchestration knitting them closer. As day unfolded, Hagar and the boys engaged alongside the elders in the discussions that ensued. Questions of lineage, social standing, and God's promise danced about them like the breeze that carried sweet fragrances of blooming flowers, but as the sun began to dip, casting long shadows about the camp, an unsettling quiet began to shroud the people once again. What of the future? One asked, a hint of despair lacing their voice. How will the sons of Abraham dwell together when the destinies appear so disparate? Hagar felt the tremors of concern beneath her feet. She stepped forward, a flicker of defiance igniting within her. Remember this, O children of promise, though we cannot always see with our eyes, God's plans go beyond man's understanding. His ways are higher, entwined through time. And as she spoke these words, the atmosphere thickened with expectation. For what we perceive as distance today may one day serve to bridge nations. The covenant promise shall endure through trials, yet it shall be fulfilled. With that, a hush fell over the crowd, hearts poised for God's revelation, delicately balanced between the past's burdens and the future's promise. The vast mystery hung in the air, whispering through the breeze, as they slowly began to discern that the foundational shifts unfolding before them were not solely about Ishmael or Isaac, but about the deep and intricate network of divine promise, a tapestry yet to be fully woven. Hagar's prayer ascended like incense, O Lord, reveal to us the fullness of your plan, for the time has come to understand that in the crucible of our trials, you shape destinies yet unseen. As she uttered those words, the wind began to whisper secrets of impending revelation, hinting that God's sovereign promise was just beginning to unfurl its mighty wings across the expanse of generations. As the shadows of the evening deepened, a stillness settled among the gathered hearts, as if the very breath of the land had paused to hear the whispers of heaven. Hagar felt the weight of anticipation mounting like the heavy clouds pregnant with rain. She looked upon the faces of those who once bore only strife, now softened by the tremors of unity she dared to instill. Behold, Hagar called out, the voice of the Almighty has not been silent amidst our struggles. For I tell you, he has seen our afflictions and has molded our pain into pathways of purpose. The throng held its breath, captivated by her fervor, as she continued, we are more than mere vessels of lineage. In his infinite wisdom, our God has woven each life into a grander tapestry, rich with promise. As she spoke, the horizon blazed with the fading light of day, and the first stars began to pierce the twilight veil. O children of Abraham, Hagar implored, let this stirring in our spirits become a testament to the might of our God. For in our unity, he desires a confluence of blessings, a convergence of destinies, reaching beyond what we can conceive. Abimelech's eyes glimmered as he surveyed the assembly, now captured by the Spirit's work. Indeed, the Creator's plans surpass our human understanding. Let us not constrict the blessings of God to the bounds of tradition or jealousy, for his sovereignty reigns over all. But, a voice interjected, brimming with skepticism, what assurance do we have that peace can flourish among us? What of the history that divides? Hagar raised her hands, palms open in a gesture of surrender. In responding to our past, we must walk forward with faith, clothed in the assurance that the will of God is unshakable. His promise shall endure despite our frailties. As night fell, the skies unfolded their celestial map, whispering truths lost to earthly ears. Hagar sensed something shifting within the folds of destiny, a divine reckoning was near. When God introduced himself to me in the wilderness, he named me the God who sees, Genesis 16 verse 13, he sees the burdens we carry, and he invites us now to share in his vision for our future. In that moment, the people wrestled with her words, as if grappling with unseen hands. Heartbeats quickened and eyes widened in the mystical embrace of newfound hope. Could it be, whispered one elder, that the legacy of our forefather Abraham would indeed be fulfilled through all his sons? That our struggles are but the seeds to a greater inheritance? Yes. Hagar affirmed, her voice rising with conviction. For as it is written, in your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, Genesis 22 verse 18. Let not our differences define us but rather our shared call to be vessels of his glory. The crowd responded with murmurs of agreement, stirring an awakening among them. Yet, as dawn must follow night, an ominous silence began to creep in once more. What unseen clashes lingered just beyond this fragile unity? Just then, a desert wind swept through, bearing sense of promise and echoing like the divine voice that called to the patriarchs of old. Is this unity a threshold, or merely a fleeting reprieve? Hagar pondered within her spirit, sensing that the path forward would be riddled with trials. As she knelt among them, fervently seeking the guidance of the Almighty, she began to pray aloud, O Lord, grant us wisdom to traverse the road ahead. May we not stumble as we embrace your wondrous plan, nor shun the calling that binds us in covenant. And with her earnest plea, a silence enveloped the gathering, as if the heavens themselves awaited an answer. What would unfold in this emerging fellowship, and how would God lead them through the unknown? As Hagar arose, she felt the winds of destiny shifting, knowing in her heart that divine revelation was imminent, for she had yet to realize that the horizon ahead bore more than signs of unity. It contained the seeds for a new lineage, a promise that echoed through the generations and would ultimately encounter the redemptive echo of the Lamb. As day would break, so too would the unfolding of God's marvelous design that spanned the ancient sands of time, calling forth a mystery yet to be fully revealed. In those days of uncertainty, Hagar and her son, Ishmael, embodied a longing woven into the very fabric of God's plan. As twilight settled gently upon the encampment, the subtle hum of anticipation stirred deep within her. It was a sacred moment, ripe with promise, where the faint whispers of divine revelation beckoned. Hagar's heart, once heavy with despair, had transformed into a vessel overflowing with hope. She gazed at Ishmael, who played with the children of Abimelech, laughter ringing sweet through the air like a melody of hope. So innocent, yet so bound to a profound destiny known only to the Almighty. Fear not, for I will make a great nation of him, the Lord had spoken, Genesis 21 verse 18. How divine providence had paved the way for this child of promise. As night fell upon the camp, Hagar found herself once again drawn into prayer. Beneath the celestial tapestry, she knelt in silence, a humble servant of the Most High. "O God, you who see me," she whispered, "reveal the fullness of your purpose for Ishmael. We long to understand. Guide our footsteps, that we may walk in accordance with your will." In that sacred silence, the air shimmered, heavy with the breath of God, and the distinct echo of his voice reverberated in her spirit. "I have chosen you, Hagar, to bear witness to my covenant. Your son shall rise against the odds, and through his lineage, nations will unfurl like the stars of the heavens." As if in response to the sacred promise, Hagar lifted her eyes to behold the moon casting a silver glow upon Ishmael and the children playing. In that moment, the veil that separated her present from the future thinned, unveiling glimmers of hope. The reality of God's covenant settled in her heart. What they faced was not mere hardship, but an adventure within the greater story of salvation. In the days that followed, Hagar called the tribes together under the ancient oak tree, a sacred gathering place. "O people of promise," she began, her voice steady and clear. "We stand upon the threshold of a new dawn, cast not by the shadows of rivalry, but illuminated by the truth of our shared destiny. The God who sees each of us calls us to unite, to prepare the paths before our children, that they might rise as beacons in a world full of strife." The assembly murmured, their hearts stirred at the sound of her words. Fishermen from Judah and shepherds from the hills found common ground under Hagar's impassioned plea. "We have endured much," she continued, "but so too have we been blessed. Let us not turn our backs upon the promise he has bestowed upon us. All God requires is faith as small as a mustard seed." "Indeed," echoed Abimelech, stepping forward with the warmth of a leader striving for unity. "Our forefather Abraham carried the seed of promise through family and beyond. Is it not our duty to see it flourish? To love and guide these children toward the greatness written in their destinies?" As days turned into weeks, the tension among the tribes slowly dissolved. The children played, the elders shared wisdom, and in the rhythms of life together, a kinship began to flourish. Hagar watched Ishmael take his first steps toward manhood, each stride filled with courage and purpose. Yet as the wheel of time turned, uncertainty loomed once more. For Hagar, the visions of jealousy still lingered among some, questions of lineage surfaced like waves against the shore, threatening to unsettle the peace they had constructed. Will they receive Ishmael as a blessing, or will the weight of the past suffocate the threads of our future? She wondered, turning to the Lord in prayer, she sought clarity. "O Lord, you have placed this burden upon my heart. Do not allow the fragments of jealousy to render us divided once more. Bind us in love as you have called us. Surround us with your hope and grace." And in his answer, she felt the presence of divine assurance, like a warm breath against her cheek. Strengthened by this promise, Hagar gathered the tribe under the ancient oak once more. "Brothers, sisters, in humility we come before you," she proclaimed, "made whole by our Creator. We are family bound by the covenant. Let us nurture this bond, for there is strength in unity." Abimelech raised his hand, and a solemn agreement fell upon them, woven together by faith, pledging to protect one another's children and uphold the legacy of leadership promised by God. It came to pass that one morning, Ishmael ventured into the valley, and there encountered a wandering band of men dressed in vibrant colors. Among them was a man sent by God's design, drawn by the solemn whispers of heaven. As Ishmael approached, the conversation burgeoned with enthusiasm, the air thick with possibility. "You are the son of Hagar?" the man inquired, intrigued by the strength radiating from the boy. "Yes," Ishmael replied, "and what do you seek?" "I seek blessings in abundance," the man declared. "The tribes whisper of a child born of promise. I notice strength in your depths and believe you shall lead one day." At those words, belonging bloomed in Ishmael's heart. A spark delicately ignited within. He understood at that moment, he was part of something grand, anchored not merely in his lineage but through faith. Nations hungered for leaders filled with wisdom, Yahweh's promise flowed through his veins. As time passed, Hagar gazed at the horizon. Indeed, the path ahead was strewn with blessings and challenges, yet she felt an unshakable faith welling within her. Each passing day revealed layers of God's magnificent design, echoing through the generations in ways she could scarcely comprehend. The life she once believed to be defined by struggle had emerged into a rich narrative of significance, and her son would rise as a mighty man of valor. And so it was that Hagar, the unexpected woman, discovered that her life, her faith, and the trials they weathered became threads woven beautifully into God's grand tapestry, a legacy echoing through the ages, intertwined with all who called upon his name. Through faith, even the smallest of destinies could influence nations. Her witness a testament that faith nurtured in trials brings forth miraculous outcomes borne by the hands of the Eternal One. And as the sun set upon the horizon, she felt the gentle prompt to continue to share this mighty story, for the truth of it must echo eternally. If you have been moved by the promise evident in Hagar's story, subscribe now to witness more arcane truths of Scripture that hold the power to transform lives. Leave a like today to contribute to spreading God's word. Let this message reach the hearts of many longing for hope. Do not hesitate to comment below with your reflections and insights. Your stories uplift our spirits together as a community of believers. And share this life-altering testimony with 5 friends who need to comprehend God's boundless grace. Take action now, for every moment is pivotal in spreading His truth.